Hi, my name is Jason Létourneau, and you're listening to XVGM Radio.
Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 107, Infernax, with composer Jason Létourneau.
Oh man, doing another composer interview.
Hell yeah.
And it's for a spooky game, even though we're not doing this in a spooky month. This is coming out in November of 2023. But I am super stoked to have our buddy Jason Létourneau, who is the composer, or one of the three composers for Infernax, on the show. Jason, thanks so much for joining us here on XVGM Radio.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
It will be a treat for sure. Always ready to geek about VGM, so...
Nice.
Heck yeah. That's our favorite thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That and pie.
Yeah, pie's pretty good.
Yeah. What's your favorite pie, Justin?
Apple.
Really?
Yeah.
Like with the crumbs on it, or?
No, that's apple crumb. Apple pie is
apple pie.
apple pie.
Okay. What about you, Jason? Favorite pie?
Well, because I'm a kid from Canada, it's a maple syrup pie, actually.
Ooh, that sounds good. What's in it?
It's pretty much like butter, maple syrup, and like cornstarch to make it a little bit thicker.
Yeah, to thicken it up. Nice.
It's really, really good.
So it's kind of like a custard kind of pie in that sense.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like a dome pie, like an apple pie, or Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even pumpkin pie is like I think pumpkin pie would have the same consistency as the maple syrup pie.
That's really cool. Yeah. Wow. I really like cherry. Yeah.
Cherry's good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cherry or lemon, but mostly cherry.
I'm not as big on lemon.
No.
All right. Cherry's not bad. Anyway, VGM.
Anyway, this episode's been brought to you by Pie, as well as very bloody, gory 2D messes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This game has been a lot of fun. So Mike and I both got the game to play before doing this episode. Mm-hmm. We got the soundtrack, so playing it has been very interesting. I have not yet gotten through the first dungeon, but that is mostly my own ineptitude.
Yeah.
Mike has gotten a lot farther than I have.
A little bit.
But
I'm almost on the third dungeon. I am I've been trying to call them mansions, because they don't really feel dungeony. They feel more mansiony.
I think they're technically castles.
Well,
I don't think they call them dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, this game is very much inspired by Faxanadu and Simon's Quest, which is my favorite Castlevania game. So, which we'll dive into in just a little bit. Let's back up a bit and let's first talk about the track that we brought the show in on, which is called Split Personality.
Yes.
This was a really sweet little introduction to Jason's compositions, and I felt like it's a little bit more on the tamer side of things, and it felt more like as an in-betweener kind of track, like an exposition kind of, like when you're going around town, maybe talking to some townsfolk. Was that kind of the intention that you had for this track?
For this one, it was really like a bittersweet feeling that needed to be like shared. So that's what I aimed for, actually, because when you hear the track in the game, it's really like for a bittersweet moment, and a little bit of like good and bad happens at the same time. So you want to kind of that feel like you're at peace, but it's weird at the same time. So yeah, that's what I was aiming for.
The vibe that I always go back to for something like that is you won, but at what cost?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like kind of what you're saying. Like it's a bit tamer. It's a good introduction to what we have coming up, and not to say that this song isn't like a banger in the same way that the other songs are. But the songs are definitely a lot more kind of energetic and a bit more. I hate to use the term "rockin" with the N apostrophe, but that's kind of the best term for a lot of the tracks that we've picked.
What else would you use other than an apostrophe? Or
An apostrophe? I mean, ing, I suppose, but that's just not even like.
maybe toss a Z at the end. Multiple Z's. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, no, and I like the feeling, the vibe that you get from this one. It's definitely a little bit slower. You definitely do get some of that bittersweet feeling that you're talking about, that this is for. I obviously haven't gotten to this part in the game yet, so I don't know exactly what happens, but I can dream up some ideas based on the feeling that you get from this track.
Yeah, this is a like Wizards and Warriors style kind of game, like a 2D action side-scrolling Castlevania kind of style with the gameplay very reminiscent of those early Castlevania games. Jumping, the mechanics are much better flowing though. You can jump back and forth, like move back and forth when you jump.
Oh,
so it's not like once you jump you're stuck. Like
you're stuck in that arc. Yeah,
you are.
I remember those.
Yeah, and those are great for what they were, but this is definitely an evolution of that. Feels very much more like maybe closer to Rondo of Blood in terms of like the jumping mechanics, but I would even compare it to like Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth in the sense that you can jump and kind of manipulate yourself in the air and attack left, attack right. Yep. Kind of move that way, which it's great. Like it feels super nice playing it, like action wise.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite Castlevania being Symphony of the Night. I felt like this played similarly enough to that while having the looks of the older retro Castlevanias.
Yeah, because it's a 2D 8-bit style title.
Is it 8-bit? I thought it was closer to 16.
Well, I mean, the design is 8-bit, but due to the architecture of all the layout and the levels, it's definitely...
The colors also.
Yeah, the colors, everything. It's much more than that.
I was talking to Ed about this game last week, and he
Who?
Your former co-host, host of the VG Embassy podcast.
There we go.
There we go. So we were talking about this game, and he did the same thing. He was like, "Oh yeah, no, it's like an 8-bit Castlevania." And I said the same thing to him. I'm like, I think it's more like, because I'd played it a little bit, and my memory's not always the best. So I was like, I think it's more 16-bit. And he looked and goes, "Well, yeah." And it's the colors. And
yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. I didn't realize like it's architected like it's built like an 8-bit Castlevania, but it has the colors of more 16-bit, and that's what was messing with my head. But I like it.
The colors, Duke.
The colors.
Yeah. You're a colorblind kid. All right.
I am too.
Let's take a break before we get into more questions for Jason. We'll have a ton to throw at him, and let's get into our first track. Justin, what do you got for us?
So the first track that we're going to play here is going to be Cliffhanger, again from Infernax. And this one was composed by Jason Létourneau. Welcome back. That was Cliffhanger from Infernax, composed by our special guest, Jason Létourneau. This one,
So good.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to say that about every single one, so we got to come up with different ways to say that was so good. I like
Muy buen.
Muy bueno, yes. I like the opening of this. It's like the opening of this really gives me the impression of a Castlevania style track. Like I get very much, and I'm not sure which one in particular because that's where I'm lacking in this conversation. Is I'm not super familiar with each of the specific games.
Wait, you're not?
No, not until Symphony of the Night, unfortunately. I mean, I've played all three of them, not to completion. The ones on the NES. So I don't know which one this is specifically kind of like mimicking or feeling, but I just like that it gives you that like, hey, this is going to feel like Castlevania a bit.
You're ready to rock, right?
Yeah.
I don't get as much Castlevania out of this as I do Mega Man. Believe it or not.
You're absolutely right, actually. That was the main inspiration for that track. But with the aesthetic of Castlevania behind it, but it's really like the galloping bass and everything is really Mega Man inspired. Because the level where it plays, actually, it's really it's in the mountains and it's a really platforming level. It made me think of Mega Man for some reason.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this.
I think the thing that really convinces me of that is that when that lead melody kind of kicks off with that that right there is it does sound Castlevania-ish too, but it very definitely strikes through more on the Mega Man side, in my opinion.
That's fair. I did specifically say the opening of the track.
Yeah,
sounds more like Castlevania. I wasn't
Justin backpedaling.
Not backpedaling at all. I literally said the opening of the track.
I know.
No, as it went on, I did feel that changed styles in a couple different ways, and I wasn't really sure where it went. So I'm glad that you said Mega Man, because as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yes, especially with one of my favorite parts. Like I thought you had really good use of arpeggios in this. Like they're not throughout the whole song, but the few places where they are, they really stand out, and I just think they sound really cool.
Thanks.
But I feel like there are kind of two segments of the song that we bounce between. There's like more of what I call like a traveling section, and then like action segments. And yes. I see Mike shaking his head, so he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jason, sounds like you agree too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When you were crafting the music for this, you'd mentioned just before that when you saw the level, that it inspired you to kind of make it more like Mega Man sounding.
Yes.
Was there any direction from the developer of this game, which the developer is, the publisher was Arcade Crew, and the developers were Berserk Studio Incorporated. So did Berserk kind of give you any kind of heads up, like this is what we want, or this is the sound style that we're trying to go for?
It really depends of the track that they needed. For this one, I don't think I had any like specifics that I had to do. I think I was like, they were like, do whatever you want. So I just played that level I was watching. I remember I usually do like video captures, and just I put it on my second screen and just make it loop while I write the music.
Oh, that's cool.
That's smart. I like that.
That's interesting.
So,
it seems like a lot of developers don't have the games ready in that capacity, where like you can play you can play through it. Back in the day, they didn't really have that.
Oh yeah, they were writing music usually alongside.
Yeah, they would be like, I need a sand level, I need a desert, I need a fire level, I need this, I need that, and that's how they would kind of do it in a lot of ways. But you actually were, I think the biggest difference now though is that gaming is so ingrained in the culture of the development that like the people that are making the games now, like Jason, are sitting down playing the games. It's a totally different world as far as like how you're creating it. So it's kind of interesting to see, to notice those differences, and to hear Jason say that.
But it's not always the case though, because I have a project where there was no visual almost at all, so I had to like imagine things, or if they had concept art, ask for that. So Infernax was a luxury in that case because it was like the game was pretty much finished when I jumped on the project. So
okay.
Yeah.
That's actually what I was going to ask is, was the game mostly finished, or were they able to provide you with the levels or the areas that they wanted you to score? But so it sounds like the game was mostly finished by the time you wrote music, so you were actually able to play through most of the parts of the game?
Yeah.
Yes, it was pretty much done actually, because I was the last composer. Because that game is like the guys from Berserk can tell you about it, because it's they always say that it's a cursed game about a curse, because they had so much roadblocks while trying to develop that game. It took 10 years, and they put it on ice like a bunch of times, and so the game was pretty much finished, but like in the last 2 years of development they added so much content, and that's when they incorporated the choice like thing in the game, and all the side quests and everything, so the game became way bigger like in the last 2 years, so they needed like a lot of music for that. So that's why. But all the areas and everything, it was all there, but there was a new quests and new stuff added and new things that you can do, so
Cool.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah. Let's get into our next track, and then we'll ask Jason some more questions, kind of probe his brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Something is Off is the next song.
Do you like my naming?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Something is Off. It's totally true. This track really fits the bill. So Something is Off by Jason Létourneau, our composer guest for Infernax. Something was certainly off about that track, because the name of the song is Something is Off.
Yes.
Off the chain, because it was awesome. Wait, is it on the chain or
No, off the chain.
It is off the chain. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't uncomplimenting.
Oh.
Discomplimenting. That song plays generally when you are facing off against somebody who you are questioning what is happening.
Like a conversation?
Yeah, so you'll come across, let's say, for example, a gallery of travelers who are very suspicious, and you're not quite sure what to do. You'll talk to them, and they'll be like, oh, come join us for a drink. Just come on, just one drink, you know? And you'll go in the house next door to the house, where they're parked, and the guy will be like, I want these people off my land. Will you help me? And then you're just like, yeah, sure. So then you go talk to them. And this is kind of leaning into what Jason was kind of mentioning earlier, is you'll get the choice to choose to either be aggressive or be more like level-headed and, you know, maybe kind of patient, peaceful, that sort of thing. So you get to choose between the two just by hitting either left or right and then choosing the choice that you want to pick. So, for example, in that example, you know, you'll talk to these guys, and if you decide, you know what, sure, I'll drink with them, you know, you end up passing out, and then you wake up the next morning and you go back in the house, and one of the guys is in there, one of the, you know, rogues, and they're just like, oh, the owner of the house, oh, he had to step out, you know, so clearly something happened. There's another moment later on in the game where you come across this person in this building when you get to this like dam-based town, meaning like they're like a river-based town that's being, the dam is how they get all their, everything. That's how they survive. And he's just like kind of stuttery and jittery, and he's like, you should destroy the dam. And you get the choice between yes, no, or never. If you choose no, then he'll be like, oh, maybe you'll change your mind later. And if you choose yes, then he's like, excellent, If you choose never, it turns out he's a bad guy, or a series of bad guys, like these wraiths, and you got to kill like all the wraiths, and they duplicate when you kill them, that sort of thing. So that's kind of typically where that music plays. Did I get that right, Jason? I'm pretty sure I got that right.
Yes, exactly. It's the cultist theme, because every time you encounter cultists, it's their team. So that plays every time you see them. So
yeah.
A way to better understand what the game is throwing at you. So if you hear the song, something's off.
Yeah, exactly.
It always.
I will say you're definitely channeling your inner Jake Kaufman with this track.
Oh yeah?
For sure. Those notes where you got those, you've got that rolling up kind of sliding bass, that doom.
Yeah, true.
That and the note bends with the twinkly kind of do 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 do. That is like, that's Jake Kaufman 101 right there. Anytime you listen to a song that he's done, like on Shantae or whatever, and you hear stuff like that, you're like, this sounds like a WayForward game. This sounds like Jake Kaufman. So your influences shine through for sure on that. Speaking of your influences and maybe your kind of musical history, let's back way back up. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with music in general and how that relates to video games. Like, what's your experience with both?
Well, it's like pretty much my two earliest passion. Like my earliest memory, like ever, it's Christmas when I got my NES. I was maybe 3.
Okay.
I think I remember like my father playing Duck Hunt with the gun right in the TV and trying to kill the ducks and everything.
Yeah.
Like I still like remember that. And music was always something that did something to me. Like I remember when I was going to some place and they had, I don't know, they had instruments or something. I always had to touch it and try to play it, even though I don't know how to play anything. So I'm like, I'm gonna try to just figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a while, it was pretty much like the only thing that I was doing was just playing video games, and I wasn't really listening to music. So like video game music was pretty much the only music that I was listening to.
Mm-hmm.
And then like further, when in high school, one of my friends came to my place and he had an electric guitar and he played Paranoid. And I was hooked. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. I need to do that.
Yeah.
So I took up lessons. I was maybe like 13, 14, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really, really obsessed with the instrument, like with music and everything. After that, I was like totally obsessed, was playing all the time. Mm-hmm. 2 years after that, after taking lesson, I started teaching at the school that I was taking lessons to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's
while
impressive.
Still in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird. Like I was still in high school and I was teaching like after school at that place with adults and everything. So
wow.
Like, oh, damn.
They're like, we don't know, man. You do this. You're way better than us. Like, you do this. That's cool.
Yeah, I was really obsessed. So, and afterward, I went to college to study jazz. I did like 2 semesters, and then I just took off to play in bands for a while, playing in bars and acoustic duos and full cover bands and stuff like that. And I did that for a couple of years, and then after a while, I got a little bit tired of just the touring, like if I can say that, because you're always like on the road, even though it's not that far. I'm not like going, I don't know, 5 hours, but sometimes it was 3 hours. So I was like, yeah, I think I want to do music like in the studio or something. Like I think I'm done with the touring thing and playing in front of people. Like I want to do stuff. And afterwards, like I was like, yeah, I should probably try to do video game music, because I've always been a gamer, and I think it's the music that I like. I like that a lot. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'm gonna try that. So I grinded for a while, and I was able to make my mark, and now be able to have that as a job. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice.
So when was that around, as far as like when it came back to video games? Like what year was that when you were like, I'm going to start working on video game music?
I think it was, I got serious about it probably 2016.
Okay. So
And
while like before that, were you playing like all the modern stuff, or were you like...
Yes.
Okay. So you kind of came up with it and just continued, all throughout, even though your passions kind of changed, where like you were doing music and stuff, you kind of continued with keep playing through like the GameCube era, the N64, like all of that.
Oh yes, I had all the consoles growing up. So I went from the Genesis, Super Nintendo, N64, Dreamcast, and all that stuff. So I always I was really influenced by that. I still like retro game music is still my thing that I really enjoy to do.
Yeah.
Even though I don't do it much anymore, but when I have the chance to do it, I'm like, oh yes, for sure, I'm gonna do it.
This must have been a dream for you then, getting on this project for sure.
It's really funny because I thought when I finished it, I was like, this is like coming for full circle, because I was like when I started wanting to do video game music, it was by doing chiptunes. Like I didn't know anything like really like how it works and to become a video game composer. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna. And I discovered Jake Kaufman around that time, and I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Nice.
And I tried to do it in a digital workstation, and then I was like, yeah, no, Jake, do it with a tracker. You have to do it with that. But man, it's so complicated. But after a while, I was able to run with it. So I studied a lot, like old module of Jake. I was really like obsessed with finding all the stuff that he released in module files and just study everything, how he does things, That's why probably my style sounds a lot like him, because there's a lot of the orchestration that it's a lot of for technique that I do, but with my musicality in it. But yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
All right. Let's get into your next pick.
Sure.
Yeah, what do you got for us?
Next is going to be Test Your Might.
And it's not Mortal Kombat related.
It is not Mortal Kombat. It is
not
from...
at all.
Yeah. No, this is actually off the Infernax soundtrack. Surprise, because that's all we're talking about today.
Yeah, sorry, MK fans. Yeah.
It came first. It's an 8-bit.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And composed by, of course, Jason Létourneau.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome back. That was Test Your Might from the game Infernax, which I don't know if we've talked about the release. It's released on
2022
for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, true. Oh, that's also true. I was going to say it's released on the PC, Xbox One, PS4, and Switch.
Oh, that, yeah.
But the Valentine's Day 2022 is also appropriate, considering the heart theme and all the blood. But yeah, so Test Your Might. This one, I mean, very quick track, but it gets its point across really quick.
Really great track.
This is the boss fight track, right?
The mid-boss fight.
Mid-boss, okay. Yeah, because I'm like, I know I've heard the track. I've heard this in-game, but it's funny because when the track started, for the first, 5 or 10 seconds, it felt like a character select track, like selecting a character in Mortal Kombat, perhaps, or something like that.
I can see that.
just because the Test Your Might is why I would say Mortal Kombat, but as it goes on, I mean, it's definitely too intense to really be a character select screen. Like it's just funny. Like the opening is like, oh yeah, choose your fighter, and then as it goes on, I'm like, no, fight, don't die, don't die.
This sounded a lot like Retro City Rampage.
Yeah,
right.
Is that Matt Creamer?
Matt Creamer. This sounds like Do or Die a lot. It sounds a lot like Do or Die.
Oh,
and it's got
wow.
that same it's got that same sound to it as the style. I know you said that you listened to Jake Kaufman, and I'm pretty sure that earlier, right before we started our whole conversation, you mentioned Matt Creamer as well. Is that
Yes.
true? You're buddies with him, or you talked to him about VGM or something like that?
Yeah, we know each other. We like I reached out to him like way back, pretty much when I first started, because when I wanted to do chiptune, and he was so gracious. He was so like he gave me like probably 3 page of information.
Oh wow,
about how to do stuff, and yeah, he was kind of a mentor for a while. Actually, I was sending him tracks, and he was like, "Yeah, you should fix this, you should do that, should do that."
Matt is a sweetheart.
I was gonna say he's a really cool guy.
such
We've
a
had him
good
on a
guy.
few times.
Yeah, we've had him on a few times. I had him on Pixel Tunes, but also had him on XVGM, and he even did the intro music to my review show. Like he's he's a buddy of mine, or of ours really. So yeah, we love having him on the show.
Yeah. I knew he was a cool guy, but it's really cool to hear that from you, like sharing all that information and actually like reaching out and helping you out with what you were doing as you were getting into it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Cool.
He gave me a push for sure, and it helped a lot. Like I became way better after like following his instructions. So.
That's way cool.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He's such a cool guy.
This track, it still stands out as Jason's. I mean, yes, it's definitely influenced and has that kind of sound very similar to that soundtrack, but like it has its own kind of feel to it. If you just listen to that, that really rockin', melody, the guitar melody and bass. It's great, but then in the background you can hear this really creepy kind of like like string section or something. Oh man, that was so cool to hear. And it was different. It felt like it was different every time too. Like when it came in, was that like an intentional choice that you made to try to maybe change up the tone of the track? Because it definitely, when you hear just that and you really kind of pick that apart, it really kind of darkens up the track quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I did it, because at first just the riff it was fine, but I was like with the chords behind it that like gives it the harmony that it's had. Like it's really like it feels really creepy and feels really like okay, we're in there.
Yeah.
And also this track actually was influenced. I don't know if you guys picked it up, but it was really influenced by TMNT actually, the old TMNT like Manhattan's Project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the punch the high melody during that plays between the riffs and everything. It's something that TMNT was doing a lot. But the harmony is really not TMNT. Like it's more creepy and everything. But
yeah.
But there's like some techniques from TMNT.
I would compare it to like the boss fight music in like Hyperstone Heist or something. It's got that same shreddy,
Yes.
So it's not as turtly surfy inspired like a lot of the TMNT stuff is. It's a lot more lighthearted. But for something like this, I mean, having that very kind of grungy, kind of chunky sound to 8-bit riffs, it really sounds well done. So yeah, I like this one a lot.
It's my 8-bit BFG division.
Exactly.
Fair.
Yeah. So Infernax, just to go back a little bit, we're going to talk about the game. So this is a very obviously inspired game by the 8-bit classics, games like Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Faxanadu, like when you're going into the towns, or even like Order of Ecclesia, the Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, when you're going to the town and you talk to the townspeople and they give you quests and you go do the quest and you come back and talk to them and they give you a reward. So there's a lot of that in this game, and all the quests are great. They're a lot of fun. They don't feel super fetch questy. It's more like stuff that you can do while you're on your travels. And you'll find, these characters that you have to interact with. And then, again, it kind of folds back into the moments where you have to choose between, do I do this or do I do that? So you can kind of play it two different ways if you want. And what's nice is, if you make a choice you don't like it, it doesn't auto-save the choice. So you could just reset the game, which is what I've been doing. Because like I always try to go the Boy Scout route the first time I play a game with this stuff. Yeah. So I try to help everybody. I try to be the hero, and I try to do all the nice things. But then you'll do that, and then it'll actually sometimes cause you to hurt somebody accidentally. There was this monster in a cage, and there's these townspeople that are standing around the cage, and they're like, murder this thing, like, you know, it can't be saved, just to kill it. It's one of the townspeople that turn into a monster or something like that. So you go over to it, and it pops up on the screen. It's like, will you try to talk to him or try to talk him down, or will you try to kill him? So I was like, well, I'm trying to go the Boy Scout route. Let me try to talk him down. So I did. And
with the power of dialogue.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. He's just like, hey, buddy, like, you okay? And the thing bursts out of the cage and murders some random townsperson.
Oh, no.
And then you got to kill him anyways. So I was like, well, okay, reset. So then I just ended up killing him. And what was really messed up was he gets lit on fire. And then he's just sitting in the cage, like, scrambling, like, being on fire. And you're just like... After the townspeople like leave, and then you're just like watching this monster die. He's taking forever, and he even mentions it. He's like, man, this is taking a long time. So then you can actually attack the monster and break the cage and like murder him, and then like it's all done really well. Like the flames subside slowly, and there's a little trickle of flame still left. It looks cool. Like yeah. So there's moments like that in the game where your choices have what's the old
consequences?
Yeah, what's the thing that I tell my kids? But your actions have consequences.
Yes.
Yeah. So
but you have a reset.
Yes. Yeah. There are save spots littered throughout the game that you can go and save.
Little like prayer tables.
Yep. And in addition to that, when you do save, you can also upgrade your items. Very similar to Zelda 2, where like you get the choice. In Zelda 2, you'll get the different power, like the levels of power where you collect like points, and then when you get to a certain limit of the points, a little pop-up window comes up and is like, do you want to put this in health, or do you want to put it in magic? And this is very similar. There's health, magic, or power, strength.
Power, right?
Yeah. So you could choose between them, and every time that you choose one, the rank rises up. So you have to gain more experience by murdering more bad guys in order to gain that. And there's also coins you can collect. You collect the coins, you can buy different spells and stuff like that. Stuff like a shield spell, stuff like a time change. This game does again take influence from Simon's Quest, so you can turn it from like day to night. But you can intentionally do it, similar to like Castlevania 64, where like in Castlevania 64 you can get the day card or the night card. So it's similar, except it's a spell. So you have a mana bar, you use the spell, it eats up some of your mana. You could refill your mana either with a potion, which you can collect, kind of like an E-tank. In a way, so you can get these potions like in Zelda or whatever, and you can.
Well, technically, you get the bottles, and then you can fill them up.
And you could fill them up. Yeah, if you encounter random people in like some of the buildings that you encounter, you could fill up the.
There's like a tavern or a bartender at the first in the first area. I don't know what he actually is, but to me it seems like a bar, and he's just filling up your potions.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of day cards and night cards, what's your next track?
Oh, hey, yeah, let's get into that. My next pick is Horrible Night to Have a Curse. Wonder where that came from.
I don't know.
Yeah, no clue,
Top
right?
of my head.
Yeah.
Top of my head.
Yeah.
Good title. I like it, though.
This one's composed by our guest of honor, Jason Létourneau. right, thanks for joining us back on our composer interview with Jason Létourneau for the game Infernax. And this soundtrack was composed by Jason Létourneau, Jules Conroy, and Olivier Couillard. So this track was called Horrible Night to Have a Curse, obviously very influenced by What a Horrible Night to Have a Curse in Simon's Quest. I'm loving all the references to Simon's Quest.
Oh, yeah.
And this game really does feel like a proper successor to Simon's Quest. It's got much more of a style that feels like Simon's Quest than it does feel like a typical Metroidvania, in the sense that you are going around, you're not going around a castle, only a castle. You are going from
countryside, really.
Countryside to countryside, towns to towns. When you do enter the mansions or the castles to do battle, that's what you're doing. And that's kind of the whole goal in the game, is you're going into these castles, which, replace the mansions from Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest.
Oh, that's what you call the mansions.
Yeah,
okay.
I keep calling them mansions just because that's the vibe that they give in a way, but they are definitely castles. And what you're doing is you are trying to defeat the enemy of that castle. And if you do, there's this lock on the main gate that you encounter of the place that you need to go into to defeat the big bad once and for all. And in order to do that, you've got to break the seal on the door. And do that, it's got different colored gemstones. And so when you beat a boss, the gemstone falls from the sky, very similar to a Castlevania game. But you actually have to attack not collect it, but you have to attack it. And when you do, it releases the spirits, and then that breaks the gemstone in the door. And so it's shaped like almost like a pentagram.
Yeah.
So you're going through and defeating all these different castles to unlock the door to the big bad for where you need to go. That's the whole point of the game. So yeah, I really dig the sound effects in the background, kind of buried.
Like the thunder.
Yeah, the kind of sound effects, and I like the sustain on it too, like the da 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 da, and then you hear like the kind of in the background. A lot of really cool note rolls with the bass, again, like we talked about earlier with the that sort of thing. When you were trying to compose this one, how difficult was it to put those sound effects in? Were you really kind of struggling, should I do this one or that one, or how did that all work out for you?
I think it was pretty natural, actually, or if I remember correctly, I wrote the track first without them, and I was like, I think if I had that's what is fun with FamiTracker, you can just create your own SFX into the song if you want. You just manipulate the noise channel and everything, and you can integrate it into the track. So I was like, if I can make it more dramatic or something, and I tried it, and I was like, oh, that's cool, actually. So I run with it, and I was like, okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I have to say, and I actually meant to say this when we were talking about the last track that you played, Something Is Off. Your use of silence in these particularly in these creepy tracks, I feel like I've been picking some of the more upbeat ones, and Mike is getting some of the more creepy,
creepier
tracks. But your use of,
usually it's the reverse.
Yeah.
you know. Usually you're picking the creepy stuff, and I'm picking the up-tempo.
Yeah. It's fun role reversal. But I really like your use of silence in just the certain parts of the track where where Something Is Off, it's almost like, oh, is the track over? No, it's still going.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And in this one, it's just the track is still going, but the silence is just there to let you sit with what's going on. I really think that it's effective, because sometimes it can be confusing, and somebody might think, oh, the track is over, and then it starts up again and it's really weird. But especially in this one, I like how you kind of have to sit with each of the musical ideas that that come through here, and just how creepy they are.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I was trying to think of the best way to explain that, because I did pick up on it, but you definitely knocked it out the park.
Those things are not a conscious choice, but in the end, when you think about it, you're like, that's right. It really helped the unsettling feeling of this track.
Yeah.
When it comes to working on this game, so you had two other composers, as we mentioned earlier, Jules Conroy and Olivier Couillard. How was it working with them? Now they're part of, because you three have the group Triptych Audio? Is that what it's called?
No,
or is that
it's
your
not with
company?
them. Yeah.
Okay, that's your company.
It's my company, yeah.
Okay. How did you come to work with them?
Yeah, since the development took like 10 years, so they had like a different stint of different composer at different time. So when I came in, like the music from Olivier and Jules was already in the game. So, and at first I came in only for sound effects actually. And after a while, Simon, one of the guy at Berserk, was like, yeah, maybe we need a track there, and we need a track there. And like I said, the game became way bigger and way bigger. So it turned out, I think I done like 24, 25 tracks in the end. So, but yeah, so they had already their music there. And when I came in, I was like, yeah, can I use, I wanted to use the VRC6 chip and everything, because I know Olivier did some tracks in FamiTracker and some in the digital workstation, and I know that Jules didn't use FamiTracker at all. He did all his track in Cubase. So when I asked Simon, can I use the VRC6, I wanted to use FamiTracker. It's always what I use when I do 8-bit stuff. So he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah. So I started writing tracks with that, and after a while he was like, yes, so we really like how your track sounds, but now there's a clash between like the different tracks. It feels weird a little bit because they're using also the limitation of the 2AO3, so like mine sounds a little bit richer because it has more channel.
Right. Yeah.
So after a while he said, yeah, could you like rewrite the tracks that they did but with your template in FamiTracker? So I rewrote a bunch of, well, not rewrote, I just like took what they did and then I added stuff in the 3 channel, like the 3+ channel that I have in FamiTracker. So it's more of a orchestration like job on that. So I did like harmony, chords and arpeggios and stuff in the background to make it more rich.
Okay, so like rearranging it kind of to fit the VRC6 sound.
Yeah. From what we talked about at the beginning, I kind of assumed that you had arranged what they had done. I didn't realize like you not only arranged it, you added to it, and that's awesome. So you actually got to leave your mark on everything a little bit.
Yeah, that was fun. But I tried to stay like really with what the composer had done. Like like if somebody would do that to my tracks, I would be like afraid that he adds too much and everything. So I just like took everything that they did, put it in FamiTracker in the normal channels, and then with the 3 extra channels, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just add chords and subtle things in the backgrounds, not like to just add harmonies and stuff like that, just to enhance what they've done, but didn't try to change anything. So
cool,
it's really cool.
Yeah. All right, Justin, I think it's time to dance.
Yeah, because the next track is called Let's Dance.
That's right. All right, let's do it. Let's dance to the soundtrack Infernax by Jason Létourneau.
Yeah.
listening to XVGM Radio.
Okay, that was Let's Dance. Let's slow the dance down so we can talk about the dance.
That sounds good. That was a rocker right there.
Yeah, it was very intense, which I always love. And it was intense, but it was also very bright. Like, I don't think it was in a minor key. I could be wrong, but I didn't hear a whole lot of minor thirds there. But I feel like, again, I'm picking a lot of the action-y, like boss fighty tracks. Is this the boss? So the other one that I picked was the mid-boss. This is the boss.
This is one of the final boss.
Oh, one of the final bosses. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, as opposed to like, I assume like the final showdown is probably the final boss.
Yeah, it's another final boss. There's a lot.
Nice.
But yeah, that one is funny because it was my first, that track was the V1 of Test Your Might, actually. Because
Really?
it was for a mid-boss, or at first he asked me to do that, and I did that, and he was like, man, that's like mid-boss on steroids. It's too much.
It's too intense. Yeah.
He said, chill a little bit. It's too intense. It's really good, but we'll do it like for a final boss, and we won't use that for a mid-boss when it's just too insane.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll roll it back a little bit.
That's good feedback, though, I gotta say. Like,
Yeah.
that is really funny. Just like writing this for a mid-boss and then being told, like, we can't use this for that.
He's totally right. It's way too much.
No, and I get that, especially after coming off of Test Your Might a couple tracks ago. Yeah, this is definitely like it's like Test Your Might version 1, but like version 1 meaning like really ramped up. Like usually when I think of like the first version of something, I think it's like not quite as good, or it's a little bit like pared down. But in this case, like you came in hard, and they were like,
yes,
no, I need you to soften it up. We'll use that for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have the same disease of Matt. He's like that too. Like he goes like all ins, and he's like, all my track needs to be final boss music.
Right.
It's like it's my version 1. That's how I do it. I'm pretty much like that too. I have to tame it down sometimes.
How difficult is that to balance when you're writing a song and that you just want to probably write all rockers? Where is that balance? Like, do you have to kind of self-contain yourself when you're writing, or is there a little bit different of a vibe to working on VGM composition in this style?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. I feel like it depends, because sometimes you might have an idea that feels like way out there, but it works. And sometimes you're sure that you nailed it, and then when you put it in the game, it's like, oh man, it doesn't work at all. So it's hard. There's a little bit of trial and error. For me, it's hard because I know some composer hear the whole thing in their head before they write the track, but I'm not like that. I'm kind of I have to jam a little bit, or just hear maybe 2 bars, and then I write those 2 bars, and then those 2 bars inspired the other 2 bars, and then so I never know where the track is gonna go, really. I try stuff, and sometimes you're enjoying what you do, and you're like, oh, that's good, and you push it, and then you look back, and you're like, oh man, this is too much. Like I'm way off course. Way off course here.
What do you use when you're trialing that in terms of jamming out? Do you use a guitar, or do you write it all on piano or something like that?
Funny thing is, usually for when I write any other kind of music, I'm like that. I jam a lot, I improvise, I do stuff on guitars or just piano or stuff like that. But for me, weirdly, writing chiptune in the tracker, it's almost like for me writing with a pen and a paper, for orchestras and stuff like that, because I internalize everything, and I don't even wrote it on a MIDI keyboard. I use my computer keyboard to write in chiptunes, because I learned that way, and it's easier, it's faster, all the shortcuts and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I've seen Matt Creamer do it on his streams, creating music live using stuff like FamiTracker, and it's just so meticulous, but it's so repetitive. There's just so much to it. How do you kind of balance that patience with that? Because you're just kind of putting in numbers and codes and stuff to line everything up. Does that get kind of daunting, where you're just man, I just want to rock out on this? How do you balance that?
Yes and no, actually, because sometimes I feel like I came up with stuff that I wouldn't be able to jam, or ideas that, because sometimes too the downside when you try it that way, when you pick up a guitar and just trying to figure out some things, after a while you have some patterns that in your playing and stuff like that. So sometimes ideas can be repetitive and stuff like that. So when you write it in a tracker, actually, you cannot record anything. You cannot play what you want to record. You have to input it row by row with, if you want a note slide, you have to input like some kind of code that like beside it. So it makes me compose like another way. Like the way I write music for that, it's completely different from what I do, and I kind of like it too because I'm kind of more creative in a way. So, but yeah, I do get what you say when sometimes you want to jam and I did it actually for FamiTracker too, because sometimes when I'm stuck, I'm like I pick up my guitar and just I have some stuff on the soundtrack that I sure did right on the guitar first, and then I've input it in FamiTracker. But it's a mix of both actually. I feel like it's my best way of writing, like for really intricate music. Like if I'm producing like, I don't know, electronic music and everything, it's another thing, like it's not the same. But if I want to write like really meticulously bunch of counterpoints like chip tunes, and it's really intricate and really complicated harmonies and stuff, I feel like that amount of control and the way it's done by Tracker, I feel like for me it works well. Like I like it, I like the process.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our next pick. This one I'm excited to hear. This one is called Liquid Town. And again, the Infernax soundtrack by Jason Létourneau. You're back. And that was Liquid Town. Liquid Town. Gotta say, this one feels the most Castlevania to me.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
There's a lot of parallel kind of melodies buried throughout this thing. A lot of back-end stuff. Like, go back and listen to it again, because there's a lot of stuff you won't catch the first time you hear it. In fact, I needed to kind of go back and listen to it a few times. But man, I really love that kind of ascending kind of melody with you know, kind of. It also feels just very Konami in terms of the sound. Like, if you told me that this was on like a Contra game or like a Castlevania game or something, like, I would 100% believe you.
Thanks.
Yeah, really well done.
That's a good compliment.
Yeah.
It's a good track.
Yeah. What do you think
Thanks.
about this one, Justin?
I definitely got kind of like, I'd say a town vibe. This kind of feels to me almost like the Let's Dance situation. It feels like it was a town track, and then it's a bit more intense than I would expect a town track to be. I'm guessing this is probably has something to do with that underwater thing that you were talking about a while ago, but have you gotten to the point in the game where this happens?
This actually, if I recall, happens when you get to one of the higher elevated locations The dam is more towards the bottom right-hand side of the map, I
to the
think.
dam, okay.
And
It's there actually. If you continue on the right, it's gonna be the place where that track plays.
yes, so I'm mixing up the parts of the map. So it's in the dam area, he's right. And then what you do is instead of going right to go to the town, you go up and left and climb up that way, and that's when this song plays. Yeah. In fact, what's funny is I had just gotten to this part in the game when you stopped by here to record this, and I was like, "Yo, this song's dope. I'm gonna make a last minute change."
Oh, that was the change that you're talking
That was
about.
the change. Yeah. So this was the track. I was like, "Man, this song is a banger. I want to put it in." So,
Yeah. So it's just fun because, like I said, it feels like it has the roots of a in-town track, and then it feels like it's cranked up a bit, and it's just a little bit more intense. Not like spooky or like fighty, just like you take that town track and you just amp it up.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it also has a bit of a groove to it too. You know that ba ba da ba ba da ba da. It's almost like a Latin vibe too. It's got a little bit of a like a salsa kind of da 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 da, which kind of floats it back into the Mega Man arena too.
Right.
Because a lot of Mega Man music, for whatever reason, has a very salsa-esque kind of vibe, particularly with the stuff that came later, like from Mega Man 3 onwards, like between Mega Man 3 and Mega Man 6. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
That track is obviously my homage at Vampire's Killer, like the first track in Castlevania.
Yep.
And one of the weird things that I was trying to do, actually, it was because there's a lot of water in that area, so I wanted to feel like a mix between Vampire Killer and Hydro City Zone. But like in my mind, that's what I had in mind, because for me, like one of the best water track is Hydro City Zone in Sonic 3. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? But I'm not sure like it came out exactly like I thought it would be, but I feel like it works for the purpose that it does, actually. Cause I kind of feel like the watery thing in there, or maybe it's because I just played the game too much and now it's burned in my brain. But I feel like it's not a mix between those two really, but the idea was a mix between those two. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we will move on to my next pick.
All right, what you got next?
This is going to be Skeletons and Stones from Infernax by Jason Létourneau. Hey there, that was Skeletons and Stones from the game Infernax, as composed by Jason Létourneau, and I thought that was pretty nifty. So, similar to the track that you just played, where you mentioned, you kind of got to go back and listen to it a couple times, because there's a lot going on. Similar here, there is a lot going on in this track, and I think that this track, aside from just being a good track to listen to regardless, deserves multiple listens. So anybody, if this is your first time hearing the track, which I assume probably is, go back and play it one or two more times and listen to everything else that's going on, because you've got these main melodies that are really cool. You've got some like cool call and response stuff going on in certain sections, but if you kind of tune out the main melody and listen to what's going on behind, there's just so much. You've got like these arpeggios going, these strings, these other things, not to mention the percussion that is constantly going and is relatively nifty. I say that because, as many people that listen to the show probably know, I don't always pay attention to percussion and drums, not for any reason other than it's not a big part of my musical background. Like they are very important, don't get me wrong, but they're not what I usually gravitate to.
Right.
So when a song can pull my attention to the percussion and the drums, it's doing something cool with it, because otherwise I'm just like, yeah, no, cool. The percussion is there, it's keeping time, it's doing its thing. But when I'm like, no, I like what you're doing, and especially like when you tune certain things out and listen to specific sections, it all has a lot of work put into it. But to make it all work together with that much going on, chef's kiss.
Yeah, that was hard actually.
I can imagine. Only imagine.
When you get, that was it's a good example of what I was talking earlier, when I was like channeling, like I was focused and I didn't pay attention, and after a while I was like, oh man, what have I done? There's so much stuff. How do I make this fit? Yeah, it turned out great. I was happy with this one. It's one of the first intense track that I did for the soundtrack. At first, if I remember correctly, it was like the first track when you enter the village at the beginning, right before you fight the monster. It was a more tamed track, but this one I could let it out like more. So yeah, that was fun.
So a lot of the stuff that you've worked on over the years, based on your history, you've worked on a lot of mobile style games, some online type games, some more like franchise and kid-friendly games, stuff like Hot Wheels, King of the Road, Rabbids and Ladders, Rabbids Hollywood. But then you've worked on some higher profile stuff like Tomb Raider, the reboot, as well as Baldur's Gate 3. When you approach these different projects in comparison with something that sings to your roots, the way Infernax does, how do you kind of balance that when it comes to coming off those projects, or maybe approaching them differently? Like, would you approach, for example, like Tomb Raider or Baldur's Gate 3 the same way that you would in Infernax, that sort of thing?
Yeah, those projects were sound design project, but it's really different actually, because the scope of those games and just the team also, like Baldur's Gate, there's so many people working on this, and we were lucky enough to integrate the team at Larian, because we have a studio here in Quebec, Larian studio here. So we were able to go there actually to work every day, like if we were part of the staff.
That's cool.
And we learned a lot, but yeah, it's so different, because when you work with indie, it's like way, like it's less corporate, it's really like more friendly and everything, and it's just almost like you say stuff on the side of the table and just go do this and try that and everything. But then you have like when you work on Baldur's Gate and stuff, you have big meetings and and it's really different in its approach, but at the same time, I mean, I try to do my best whatever the kind of game I'm working on. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it's more like the way of working that is different. I would say.
I would imagine also going with those much larger projects where like you have to go into the office and you have to have all these meetings and everything, and you probably have like more voices kind of giving you input and telling you what the sound should sound like, as opposed to like working, in a home studio or working more locally, where you could be like, hey, here's what I've done so far, and then they'll be like, oh, that's great, and then you're like, is that it? And they're like, nope, that's just great, that's perfect. Yeah. So I would imagine that the stress levels are different too. Would you say that that's true?
Yes, that's true. I feel like you have a little bit more freedom when you work with indie and games like Infernax.
Yeah.
It was really a casual relationships. It was really fun. We became, I am now friends with the people at Berserk, and it became a friendship afterwards and everything. It was, but yeah, it's really not the same. Like this, everything you work like for spells in Baldur's Gate, like there's a recipe for everything, and you have to follow those guidelines when you make a sound, and you spend like a lot of time creating like just an explosion and everything. It's not the same level of, the expectations are really high, so
Sure.
there's the process of approval also is different. There's different stages of approval. So that's the main thing I would say, is that it's different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Let's move on to the next pick, and then we'll get into a little bit of the story about Infernax and the character who you play as. This track is called Consider Yourself a Hero.
Ooh.
Welcome back to our Infernax Composer Spotlight with composer Jason Létourneau. That was from Contra. That's Consider Yourself
That would
a
be fair.
Hero.
That
Yeah.
would be fair.
I mean, right down to the
Yeah.
Wait, I was waiting for da 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 da.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No,
Yeah.
It would have been a little bit too blatant.
Yeah.
Oh, only a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard this on the soundtrack, I lost my mind. I was like, oh my god, this sounds a lot like Contra. And as it went on, like the differences are obvious and they're there.
For sure.
But the influence is so, it's laid on so thick. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
I like when songs can reference something else, still feeling like their own track, but like you know what the reference is, I think that's mostly because I'm a very oblivious person. So more times than not, you have to be very, very specific about things with me. Otherwise, it should go right over my head. And when I get something, I'm like, oh, I get what that's a reference to. I just get really stupidly excited because it doesn't happen very often.
Right.
So the first time that I heard this track, it was like immediately my favorite track on the soundtrack. There are other ones that have actually come up over it because, like, once the nostalgia kind of wears off, and you're like, it's still a good track and I still love it. But some of the more original ones came to the top after subsequent listens.
Yeah.
Off the bat, this one was hands down. I was like, yes, perfect.
So you're
go.
saying it touched your Contra funny bone.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I will say that this one so far sounds the least VRC6-ish.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, this sounds a lot more like it came directly from the NES.
Yes.
And so was there a conscious decision that you decided to go with and abandon the more VRC6 style? And where does this take place in the game, too? Because I have not hit this part.
Okay, are you ready, guys?
Yeah.
there's a good thing for that. Yes. So the reason is it's because actually it's an old track that I did on my EP like back in the day. So it's the only song that I did for Infernax actually that I didn't do for Infernax. Like it was already made, and that's because if you do the Konami code at the beginning of the game, it becomes Contra. You have like guns the whole game.
Oh, I can't wait to try that. Awesome.
Oh yeah.
That's so cool.
The game becomes way easier also.
Where do you have to do it? On the title screen or?
I don't remember. I'll send you. There's an IGN article that just about that.
That's
because,
so
people
cool.
were freaking out.
Yeah.
That's
such a nice little Easter egg.
That makes the reference so much better. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's not only is it you can see the reference, but you do a thing that is also a reference to that to make this musical reference happen. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool Easter egg. It starts and you see Alcidor with the big gun and just let's rip it, and then start, and that track start. It's right at the beginning, and then you're just shooting things.
Oh, that's so cool.
And you can do the whole game with the guns. Like there's
Oh,
you can
wow.
do it all the way. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. I'm gonna have to try that now.
Absolutely. It is worth noting, too, that this game got an update earlier this year that added in an additional player where you could play as Servule the Squire. Update was called Do or Die, Do being DEUX.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Yes.
Do, like two, do, yeah. But Infernax, the story of the game, you're playing as a character named Duke Alcidor. He's going through, during the Crusades, there's a bunch of monsters that kind of popped up afterwards, and the villages seem to be hit by a satanic cult that is brewing these monsters, kind of conjuring them. And you fight with a shield and a mace. But the other character, Servule, wields a throwing axe. He also has a crossbow and a shield, along with Alcidor. Alcidor has a shield as well that you can get in the game. No.
Yeah, the only thing that I did for the hub, they did the title screen kind of Contra.
Oh, cool.
And I used the main melody from the overworld, like the na 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 na. But I did it as Contra, in the intro.
Oh, cool.
So,
like that. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun. Yeah.
But
That's
using
cool.
the main melody from the overworld. So
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Can't wait to try that one. Yeah. Let's get into your last pick,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so we got one more after this, but I'm going to end my run here with Two Champions Collide from Infernax by Jason Létourneau. Hey, welcome back to XVGM Radio's Infernax composer interview with Jason Létourneau. That was Two Champions Collide that you just heard.
Indeed, and it does sound like two champions colliding.
Again, another very intense boss fight sounding track. This
Indeed.
one, again, considering the name, I assume this is a boss fight. You are a champion versus the champion of evil. Haven't gotten there, so can't not confirm, but, you know.
Is this when you fight that giant skeleton?
No.
Okay.
I cannot really tell you. It's like it's a big like plot twist.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Yeah, don't tell me.
That's exciting. Yeah, no, this kind of sounds like a plot twist sort of fight. Like, this to me almost sounds like, again, going back, Symphony of the Night, Alucard versus Alucard.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah.
The inverse Alucard or whatever it was. I don't think the song sounds like that track, because I don't think that track's any different than the other boss fight tracks, honestly. But that's the kind of idea I get. Like, you're either fighting like a mirror version of yourself.
You talking about the doppelganger?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Doppelganger.
Yeah. No, I think that's the same. It's got that
That's what I'm
sweetly
saying.
meadly guitar. Yeah, it's the same track.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That track is, like, there is no different track there, but the idea of, like, facing yourself or facing, like, an evil version of yourself.
Oh, I see what you mean.
that-
Shadow
yeah.
Link.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And again, don't spoil it for us, or what the twist actually is. And I'm sure it's better than than like Shadow Link or something like that. But that's the kind of idea that I get out of this. Is just like, you know, as you said, there's a twist and you're fighting
Shadow
somebody made out of this.
Alcidor.
The only thing that I can say it's you'll hear it if you do the evil route.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Interesting. Okay. Which I'm not doing currently, so I'll have to go back and do the evil route because I'm doing all the nice things.
Yeah, I mean, I figured
there-
I'd play through it a couple times to do the different choices. Yeah.
There's a lot of replay value because I think they add like 8 different endings.
Oh, wow.
Like that.
Wow.
Yeah. No, definitely a lot of replay value. Plus, you know, you can play the whole game in Contra style too, so there's that.
Yeah.
That Contra thing just moved this game up my list. Like, I was playing it already, but
Yeah.
I have so many games in my backlog that I'm finally starting to kind of come back into. But this is being moved higher up the list because of
Nice.
that.
That's cool. When it comes to writing boss tracks, how do you try to keep it fresh and different for each one that you try to approach? Like, especially if you're doing like multiple boss tracks, like in this game, do you get like a lot of fatigue where you're like, okay, I'm writing a banger, sure, but this one sounds too much like the other one. Is that difficult to balance?
It's something that I keep like in my mind all the time. Like I really want to have like different stuff in the soundtrack, and I don't want things to sound similar too much. So it depends. Usually, like if I get a lot of inspiration for, I don't know, like just playing the game or just talking with the devs or trying to find other tracks to inspire me, usually it's not really a problem. Especially that track, because I remember like when I started, it was a weird intro, and the way I started it, I was like, how am I gonna just... The main problem was, how am I gonna finish this? Like it's really weird, and it's weird to say, but it's not really my style, even though I came up with it. So... For that, actually, it was way different from the other like stuff that I did. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna push it through and try to finish it. And at the end, it turned out great, but it was a struggle. I remember this one was a struggle a little bit because I didn't know like how to follow through and add sections to make it exciting and keep it fresh. But yeah, I can't really say that I find that really difficult for Infernax. Like for other projects, I totally had that I felt that I was almost like not repeating myself, but I was aware that, okay, it sounds a little bit too much like one thing or another. But I feel like for Infernax, I was like searching a bunch of stuff to inspire me, and not just Konami. I was like going through a whole bunch of NES games that I liked and try to grab some stuff to inspire me. So
Sure.
I didn't feel burned out while I was writing Infernax. Like everything came up really fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a treat to work on that.
Yeah, I think that shines through here for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, all things considered, especially with what you're saying about composing this track, I thought it came out really well. I think you really hit the mark with what you were trying to do. So, I mean, good job all around. I mean, on the soundtrack itself, again, as I mentioned, I kind of inadvertently ended up picking a lot of the boss or mini boss
Banger.
tracks.
Yeah.
And they do each sound unique. So. And we're kind of used to a lot of the older games where, the boss track is the boss track, and maybe there's a different track for the final boss.
Right.
Every boss is more or less the same, and you've got so many different boss tracks to choose from, and they're put at unique points in the game, and they do not sound the same. Like, they have the same kind of energy, sure, but I mean that's what you expect out of a boss track, right? High energy and high octane.
All right, last track. Yeah. Ruins of Evil is our closer for this episode, again by Jason Létourneau, our guest of honor, and the remainder tracks, which we aren't playing from, were also composed by Jules Conroy and Olivier Couillard. Hey, you're back, and that was our closer for the Infernax Composer Spotlight. Ruins of Evil was the name of the track. It's a waltzy little number, very Baroque kind of style. This one is definitely the most Baroque of all the tracks.
But don't fix it. All right.
You stole my joke.
I did. I got right in there.
God. Worse.
Although you said something that references something that I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, and maybe it's a combination of the things. It felt like there was either heavy use of triplets or a few time signature changes. And with things like Famitracker, I'm not actually sure if one of those is possible over the other. So I wanted to ask, what was your process like for this track? Because I think out of all of them, this has the most complicated feel to me as far as, like I said, between triplets, time signatures. I don't know if it's truly like a waltz or if that's kind of an effect of using triplets in certain ways, or like, what did you do here? Because this is really nifty.
Magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a time signature thing.
It is. Okay.
I think it's like one measure of 7/8 and one measure of 5/8, something like that. I don't exactly remember, but yeah, for time signature per se, it's not that hard in Famitracker. Triplets and stuff like that is harder because you have to play with the tick of each row to make it fit, and you have to delay some row to really like make it feel like a triplet. It's a little bit complicated.
Okay.
But yeah, that feel is really like a time signature thing. It made it hard to write the melody on it too. I remember when it came on, I was like, oh, I have to write a theme on top of that. Oh. Wow. So it took some time, but yeah, in the end it worked out well because it goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier. Like, since I wrote it, I had to force myself to write it in my head because I can jam it and play it and everything. And I think it came out great. Like, I couldn't have played that on my guitar, like that thing. So
yeah, no, I agree. I thought it came out great.
That's a thing also that I took from Vert, like a bunch of different time signatures all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild. So, why did you pick the song, Mike? What are your thoughts on the song? I kind of jumped in on that. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Like I said, it's a very waltzy Baroque era kind of style track. And this one doesn't feel like it is trying to sound like Castlevania, which is good because it still channels the same elements that was present in the franchise. But this feels very much like a modern take on Baroque, which was really cool to hear. So, but it still technically sounds Castlevania. But it sounds
right, but that's
like
because Castlevania pulls from the whole Baroque era. Yeah.
Right, for sure. But Castlevania also pulls from other elements too. A lot of the other music sounds, there's rock elements, there's metal elements, there's dance elements, there's funk, jazz, all sorts of stuff that they really pulled from when making these soundtracks. But Baroque was always kind of like the backbone to a lot of Castlevania music. But this seems to, sound the most video game-ish, while also yet remaining, furthest away from sounding like it's trying to be a video game song. But it could also pass for just like a Baroque era like tracks, which is cool.
I would argue it's not trying to be a video game song. It is.
Well, it is for sure. Song. But I mean, like,
no, I know.
When you listen to something like "Consider Yourself a Hero," that is very clearly being like, "Remember Contra?" You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Okay.
And some of the other tracks, here, which we've already mentioned, like Cliffhanger, for example, like it's very clear that is based on or sounding like it's from a game that has already existed, whereas Ruins of Evil specifically sounds like something that was made first for music purposes, not game purposes in that aspect. So just to try to further explain myself.
Yeah, that is a multi-layered thought.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah. You're a multi-layered thought.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cool. It's cool.
This was great, though. This was awesome to sit down with you finally. We were talking about doing this like a while back, and we wanted to do it, and we just never could fit it in, but it was always written down like on our sheet, like, let's get with Jason and talk about this amazing soundtrack. So I'm glad we had the opportunity. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode, Jason.
Thanks for having me, guys.
For
sure.
a
treat.
Yeah.
Let's pick our favorite tracks, which is what we usually do at the end of the episode. This is going to be a tough one to do, but we usually let the guest go first. So, Jason, what's your favorite track of the ones that we've picked for this episode?
Oh boy, that's hard. I think I'm gonna go with Let's Dance.
Okay.
Because,
nice.
For me, like the technicality of it and the way it came out, like I was really, really happy with it. It was almost like I was challenging myself to come up with something really technical that would sound a little bit like Jake Kaufman and those frenzy arpeggios and stuff like that. So. I was really happy with how it came out. So, I'll choose Let's Dance.
Nice. Good choice.
Justin?
Also very, very difficult for me. I mean, I'm leaning a little bit towards that Consider Yourself a Hero because it kind of pulled me back into that, like,
sure,
hey, Contra.
Yeah.
But actually, I think I'm going to go with a surprise pick on this one and go with Something Is Off. We're recording this on the 1st of November, the day after Halloween, so I'm still kind of in the Halloween spirit, and Something Is Off is a very creepy song, and then it also speaks to, my goth side. Staying with that whole creepy thing.
Right.
I like a lot of industrial and gothic music, and this, while not being strictly in that category, has a lot of that feeling to it. So I think because of the time of year and the spirit, as it were, I'm going to go with Something Is Off. And what about you?
This is tough.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with Cliffhanger as my number one, but it's like by a hair.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that it really has that uplifting, soaring melody that I always look for in music. That part that's like that, like, man, that makes my heart sing and skip a beat. So Cliffhanger is definitely the surefire winner, with Liquid Town coming in at a very close second place.
Fair.
So just because that one just sounds the most Castlevania to me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Liquid Town is like one of the favorites amongst Berserk Studio. Like,
Oh,
really
cool.
enjoyed it. We're like, yeah, it really feels Castlevania for them. So they were like, yeah, we like it.
And there's a lot buried in the background in that track that really made me want to like go back and listen to it again. And it was just like, it fit really well with the game too. So yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
All
you.
good picks. Very hard to choose a favorite out of this episode, but thank you for the fantastic music, I must say.
Absolutely.
My pleasure, guys.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Cam Worma, Jordan and Anson Davis, Rage Cage, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Scott McElhone, Chris Myers, Brad Austin, Chris Murray, Llama Adam, Marcus Stewart, Nick Davis, and Ryan McPherson.
If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/XVGM Radio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
If you like what you've heard, please consider giving us a review on iTunes.
You can join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks or just talking about the podcast itself.
You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both those sites is @XVGM Radio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links in the show notes. All right, so we've got a little bit of information on what we've got coming up in the near future. On November 14th, we'll be doing an XVGM After Dark, which is where we listen to video game vinyl for video game music. And we're going to be listening to your brand new Super Dodgeball soundtrack, the NES Classic, which you're going to unbox.
Correct. I should say this episode is likely going to be coming out around the 22nd, so the Super Dodgeball episode will have already happened. So
Correct.
if you missed it, go back and check it out, or if you didn't miss it, go listen to it again, because the VOD stays up on Twitch for a while. That's twitch.tv/shock83j16.
Yep.
And yeah, we got Super Dodgeball. Fantastic soundtrack, one of my favorites on the NES. No patron show in the month of November, but coming up next month in December, we do have a live show. That'll be on the 10th of December, and that's going to be a Patreon theme, so we don't know what it's going to be, and we need you all to help us figure it out.
Yeah, so if you are a patron listening, go check out the poll if you haven't already. Go vote for what you want to hear, what themes that we've picked for you that you can vote on.
Yeah.
But coming up next month in December, right before the year closes out, what are we coming back with for episode 108?
This is an interesting one. We're going to be talking about the Casio Loopy.
Ooh, yeah, that's a game console that's a pretty obscure collection of games. There's literally 11 games on the console, so we are going to be playing 11 songs, one from each game.
Assuming that there is music in every game. So, come back for that and come listen to some loopy music.
Yeah, I'll get my Casio on. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is Mike
And Justin.
signing off for XVGM Radio.
Our first track is going to be Cliffhanger. Yeah. So we got to fix that during the break.
Whoops.
We're not playing Cliffhanger back to back.
We like Cliffhanger so much we're playing it twice. Yeah.
Seriously.
Whoops. Okay, I'll fix that.
Oh, that's funny.